And as a next step, we're going to talk about some of the events that are coming up. You can just see it on the screen, but I also want you to take advantage of the QR code. We have a practice ranked choice voting for you to choose the best picture of 2022. There are quite a lot of movies that are listed there, but go ahead and follow that link. We can also pop the address for it in the chat. So if you prefer to just click on a link, please go ahead and do so. We'll be looking at that if we have time towards the end of the meeting to see how ranked choice voting works in case you haven't seen it before. Okay, we'll give a few moments for folks to be able to go through that and maybe vote for their best picture. And then I'm going to move on one more slide just to show you some of the other events that are coming up. We have a number of events that are coming up for Redondo Beach. We'll talk about that in a little bit. That's our next big target that we're going after for the local campaigns for ranked choice voting. All right. If you haven't already done so, go ahead and just click on the link that's provided for voting for best picture or for the other links, volunteering, donating. Any questions before we jump into the agenda? Anything you want to put in the chat? Oh, thank you, Jim, for the comment. When you are donating, it would be fantastic if you would donate on a regular basis, on a monthly basis. So go for a recurring donation. Anything as little as $1 a month would help. And of course, if you want to give us more, that'll go even longer. $100, $500, I don't know, $1,000 a month. But whatever you can give, it will help. Thank you.
Also, Arash, Sean mentioned in the chat, for people who are doing that survey right now, that ranked choice voting, you could hit and toggle and move the different movies up and down in your order of preference.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's a long list. Good point. Thank you for that, Sean and Guy. Yes, you can drag and drop. You don't necessarily have to put in the ranks manually. So you have that option in this voting.
And make sure to click submit once you're done at the bottom of that page. Otherwise, it won't count.
That's important. That's important.
I've made that mistake before.
Okay. And then a final note before we jump in and hand this off here, the guy who was just speaking a moment ago, I wanted to show you our agenda, essentially what we're going to be covering. We're going to be talking about our missions and values as an organization. We have made some revisions to our organization to be able to address the local campaign needs that we have coming up this and following years. And then we'll talk about how you can get engaged, what you can do specifically around some upcoming events where we're pursuing ranked choice voting at the local campaigns. And we'll have a fundraising update as well as talk about a little bit more detail around our upcoming events, what you saw a little bit earlier. With that, I will go ahead and hand this over to Guy.
Cool, thanks, Arash. Hi, everybody. It's good to see a lot of familiar faces. Welcome. For those of you who do join us on our quarterly statewide meetings, you'll have seen and heard the mission and vision of the organization before, but we always get a lot of new folks too. So we like to review each time. Our vision is a California where all residents feel represented and heard. And our mission, or reason for existing, is to expand the use of ranked choice voting to all Californians to ensure we have a greater voice in our democracy. As part of our mission and vision, we have 6 core values that we like to keep front and center or top of mind as we work to accomplish ranked choice voting throughout the state. As you all know, California is a super diverse state, and so our first core value is representation. We seek to understand and encourage diverse perspectives and create a space that is safe and welcoming to all. Next up is integrity, and we treat our partners, our volunteers, our communities, and the work we do with respect and accountability. Next is cooperation. We work collaboratively within our organization and with our other partners and allies. Resourcefulness. We're creative and efficient. We learn from others and we ask for help. Sustainability. We ensure our actions contribute to the long-term growth of ourselves, our organization, and the broader movement. And finally, being strategic. We remain focused on our mission, stay adaptable, and always ensure our actions move us closer to achieving our goals. And speaking of strategic, our North Star goal, what we're all here working towards and helping is to pass ranked choice voting for statewide offices, including Assembly, Senate, and the 8 constitutional offices. Constitutional offices meaning statewide offices like governor, lieutenant governor, secretary of state, et cetera. So with that being said, I want to share a little bit with you about the active campaigns we've got going on. First, Redondo Beach. We are super excited to be launching a campaign there. For those of you who want to check out the site, it's redondoirv.org. And for those of you who know, we had the city council members there unanimously vote to put ranked choice voting on the ballot for their upcoming election. Redondo votes in odd years, so their election is this year, and it's coming up March 7th. So we are hosting a lot of various phone banks and text banks and identify voters who favor RCV and also make sure we get those voters out. We're going to have a lot of opportunities for you guys to engage, and we need all the time you're willing and able to contribute. Jess will talk later in this evening about some of the specific things we'll be doing there. The other update is Santa Clara County. The Board of Supervisors are connecting with their county legal counsel to consider a fair vote legal memo that basically argues that as a charter county, Santa Clara County can indeed adopt to go with ranked choice voting. If that doesn't work out, our plan B would be to work with state legislators to pass a limited bill that would specifically give Santa Clara County the right to adopt ranked choice voting. And so those are our 2 local campaigns or active campaigns at the moment. And we certainly can answer a lot more questions about that towards the end of the call tonight when we have some Q&A time. With that being said, I want to hand things over to Sean Dugar.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Guy. Good evening, everyone, or good night here from New York City. So as we discussed on our last statewide meeting, there was a bit of a hiccup in Alameda County with our registrar of voters and the tabulation process for all of the ranked choice voting elections in Berkeley, Oakland, and San Leandro. While that was simple human error, they checked a box in the counting software that they should not have checked. We know that this has had serious implications for ranked choice voting across Alameda County and across the state. Currently, there is ongoing litigation to make sure that the Oakland School Board District 4 candidate who had the most votes ends up being seated. Currently, the person who was certified with the most votes is in that seat, but a judge has authorized a manual recount of a limited number of votes in that race, of about 230 plus votes that are what we call suspended ballots. Those are ballots where no first choice candidate was marked or a write-in candidate was included. And so what was supposed to happen is those votes were supposed to be counted as first choice votes for whoever the first marked candidate on those ballots was. Unfortunately, that did not happen. They were marked as second choices or counted as second choices. And so that process is ongoing of litigation. They're actually counting votes and examining ballots as we speak, but we hope that that will be taken care of very soon. We as CalRCV and our partners at FairVote and other allies continue to monitor the situation and are making sure that the ballots are counted and that ranked choice voting continues to move forward in those cities. With that, I will We can answer more questions later, but I will pass it off to Tom.
Thanks, Sean. Yeah, Oakland is interesting, and I'm glad that you, Sean, have been able to, as an Oakland resident, and obviously as a ranked choice voting expert, have been there to be able to help with the fallout of that human error that happened. And as noted, we can answer more questions later on when we have our Q&A. But with that, let's actually talk a little bit about CalRCV and our organization, some updates here. So this is our new org chart. It's actually not super different from how we were organized before, but we wanted to cover some of the changes that we've made, and I want to replay a little bit about the history of the organization because it's important. So we launched about a year and a half ago, with September 2021. I'm sure that many of you were on that very first Zoom meeting we had. Very exciting, and that was the organization's big official launch. And we had a number of volunteer teams, right? We're all volunteers in this organization currently. And we had a number of volunteer teams. And then over the past year and a half or so, as we've grown and evolved as an organization, and particularly as we get ready to hire our first full-time staff, right? So we've been able to bring in some consultants like Sean, but we have no staff. But we are hoping and expecting that this year we're going to be able to hire an executive director and other staff members as our funding allows us to do that. And so to get ready for that, we took a look at our org chart and we started to rework it. We also wanted to make sure that we're reflecting how we're really operating right now, because we haven't gone back and looked at this in a bit. And so when we looked at the org and what we're focused on, you can see starting up at the top, CalRCV is made up of both 501c3, which is the California RCV Institute, and a 501c4. And the difference between those comes down to what we're allowed to do on a tax basis. And basically the C3 has to focus on education, and the C4 can focus on political work and running campaigns in effect. And both of those boards then drive the strategy that the executive team, which is a number of volunteers, actually implement. And then we have three sort of broad categories of how we work. There's operations, just running the organization. And so I run that. And within operations, we have our DEI team, diversity, equity, and inclusion, the fundraising team, and our tech and data team. And then Guy, who you heard from a few minutes ago, runs our campaigns and outreach set of folks. And that's the biggest group here on screen. And I want to point you to those blue boxes at the bottom, starting at the left. Some new projects here. The first is a project we call RCV in Your City. And the idea behind RCV in Your City is that we very frequently have people coming to the organization saying, hey, can I bring ranked choice voting to my city? And we wanted to put together someone who's responsible for talking with those folks, making sure that, going through all the qualification that we need to do to see if there's a fit at all for ranked choice voting, right? There's a number of things that cities have to have in order to even have a chance at getting ranked choice voting in the city here in California. And the second are cities of interest. These are cities where CalRCV is working specifically on trying to get ranked choice voting on the ballot in that city. So we're doing things like working with city councils, working with political consultants or lobbyists to go to the city council or to a county board of supervisors and start getting them familiar with the benefits of ranked choice voting that are specific to that city or county. And then once something goes on the ballot, as it now has in Redondo Beach, for example, becomes a campaign, right? And at this point, CalRCV is also set up as a ballot measure committee for statewide, or not for statewide, but available throughout the state of California. We can run campaigns now. And that's a recent change that we went through. And so we're now able to run campaigns. We're doing that in Redondo Beach. We've fundraised for that, and we're running that campaign. And we plan to do many more cities and counties in 2024 and on that way. We also have, of course, our marketing team. We have a policy and research team, and we have an outreach team. And the outreach team is kind of split between the campaigns and outreach team or project and our volunteer management project. And that's the last one I want to talk about very quickly. So volunteer management, very straightforward. It's run by Paul Copley, who couldn't be on the call tonight, but is another member of our executive team. And that's where we're focused on building out a very large database, large list of supporters for our statewide efforts, right? So not in any one particular city, but supporters of ranked choice voting all over the state, canvassing and base building, as well as onboarding and engagement of volunteers. So all of that is nice information to have, but what does it matter for everyone on the call? What matters for everyone on the call is if you are not currently deeply involved in the organization, but you'd like to get more involved, please reach out to myself, to Guy, or to Paul. And can we get our emails in chat, Dan? They're in the notes there. So in chat, you're going to see our email addresses in a minute. Please reach out to any one of us if you are interested in any of these things. In particular, we are always looking for leaders, volunteer leaders, to work on our volunteer management, in particular, canvassing and base building. We need to build up a large organization. Same for outreach, which goes beyond canvassing and base building and gets into how we're working with other organizations around the state to look at opportunities to pass RCV in cities and counties all around the state. So please reach out to any one of us. We'd love to have a conversation. We can give you more details about what's involved and pair you up with others, because many of these, there are active volunteers working on them. But yeah, we are always open to having more people getting involved. And with that, I am going to hand it over to Warren.
Tom, thank you so much. Hello, everybody. I am Warren Lee. Some of you might have had my name when you first got in here. Hopefully that has changed. But I'm Warren. I'm the marketing lead. I live in Santa Monica. And I imagine that many of us are here because we see a broken system. I mean, we're not here because everything is going perfect and our politics are getting better and the system's working. Legislators are enacting brilliant laws, solving problems, making things happen. I imagine most of us are here because we see something that we want to fix. And I believe that ranked choice voting is really the first and easiest step towards a better everything, like literally everything. And if you believe what we're doing, I think the easiest thing you can do to help us, which won't cost you any money, is just tell your friends about us. And I made this little guide, which I put a link. If you can't scan the QR code, I put a link to it in the chat. But ultimately, CalRCV is going to succeed if enough people learn about ranked choice voting. And that's a big part of what we do, because we believe that once they learn about ranked choice voting, they like it, and then they won it in their elections. And right now we're just shy of about 1,500 subscribers. And it'd be a very different organization if we had 10,000 subscribers or even 100,000 subscribers. And I know that like the plan for CalRCV is like a 6-year plan, right? So the sooner we can get to 6 figures in subscribers, the better. I mean, really, with 40 million people in the state, like if we could just get to like 25 million people who like ranked choice voting, we're done. Pack it up and leave, right? It's over. So one of the easiest things you can do is tell people about it. And I made this guide because I just know that we don't have a lot of time to put effort into these things. Like all of this is like volunteer ran. Even being here on this meeting, like you all taking the time to be here tonight, like I really do respect and appreciate that, which is why I tried to make this tool for people to just easily copy and paste either a text message to a friend or family, or they can share some of our best, most useful Instagram posts or Facebook posts, and even a few tweets that I've taken the time of you having to sort through all the stuff we've posted, and you could just send it out to the people that you think would be interested in CalRCV. And the more the better, even people who don't live in the state. And I would encourage everybody to bookmark this page in case you're not able to do it anytime soon. And if you are on social media right now, I am sort of leading the charge for Instagram and Facebook. I've also sent a lot of the emails, but if you're on social media and you happen to find something that you think is cool and relevant to electoral reform, California politics that are like as close to electoral reform as you can get them, or obviously anything ranked choice voting, feel free to just tag CalRCV in those posts, and then we will get them, and sometimes we'll share them. And like social engagement really makes a difference on Instagram especially. But feel free to tag us in some posts and even have conversations with us if you like. I try to get back to everybody. We're also very active on Reddit, and you'll see the links to all the social media and everything else on the bottom of the thing that I just sent to everybody. But I will also share those in the chat right about now. So all of our socials are in there too. Please like and subscribe. And then, as Tom was just saying, if anyone's interested in getting involved in more volunteer stuff, feel free to reach out to me. I'll throw my email in the chat. Or you could message us on Instagram or Facebook, because I happen to get those too. I just don't check them nearly enough. So that is that. So hopefully this tool is useful to all of you. Thank you for being here. And please tell the people, because you tell 5 people, and then they tell 5 people, and then they tell 5 people. And then next thing you know, everybody knows about it and our job is done. So with that, I am going to pass it on to the next person. And
That's Karen.
that is Karen. So Karen, take it from here.
Thank you. Thanks, Warren. So I'm Karen Fink. I am from the fundraising team, and I'm just going to give you 4 quick highlights about things that we've been working on and where we're at with fundraising. So as you can see from this slide, this shows our overall fundraising that we've been doing since we founded the organization. That's the big purple line on the top, and then the smaller bars on the bottom show how much that we've brought in each month. So since we were founded back in October 2021, we've brought in nearly $150,000. And then we also have our ongoing recurring donations campaign, which is called the 100 by 100 campaign. And the goal with that is to get to a point where we have $10,000 a month coming in recurring donations, so that we can hire permanent full-time staff, as Tom was mentioning. And so we're also doing quite well with that. We are at $6,760 right now in monthly donations coming in. And one thing that has been really helping us with that is that that is thanks to our amazing donors who have contributed monthly, also to some generous matching donations. And one of the things that we have is we have a $1,000 matching donation right now. And so if you donate, your donation will be matched. And then when we complete that $1,000 matching donation, we have another one that will be activated as soon as we get to a certain point. So we're actually only about $102 in monthly donations away from activating that next $1,000 match. So those are the things that are really helping us to meet our goal overall. And I just want to quickly talk about why I am doing a recurring donation, and that I actually really like doing recurring donations. And this is something that I learned about through CalRCV, but it just allows me to, give every month to this cause that is really important to me. And I'm donating at an amount that I know I can afford, and I don't have to think about it. Sometimes during like campaigns for different, Congress or whatever, every few months you're like, oh, should I donate again? How much should I donate? This is just like I just set an amount that I know I can do and budget for, and I don't even have to think about it anymore. So it's just something that I can commit to and that is important to me. So I think that's the main update on our 100 by 100 fundraising campaign, and the donate links are in the chat if you would like to become a donor, if you are not already, and thank you to everyone who is. And then just a couple other things I wanted to mention is that we have hired a fundraising consultant, Ray Lopez Calderon. So we've brought him on board. We're really excited. He's going to help us create and execute a comprehensive fundraising strategy, both for our short and long-term fundraising. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that we've also recently had a really successful house party. So that was another fundraising strategy where, a CalRCV supporter invited a bunch of their friends over to their house and told them about CalRCV, had kind of a fun ranked choice voting activity with different wines and food. And so now we have another supporter who wants to do a house party in Oakland, which we're very excited about. And that's another way that you can get involved or, help do a small amount of fundraising on your own, is by doing a house party if you're interested in that. And they're really fun and easy, and CalRCV helps. We provide a speaker and we can help you set it up. And so if you're interested in doing that, you can also email us you can email the fundraising team at fundraising@calrcv.org. And the last thing I just want to mention is if party planning is your thing and you would like to help us organize the house parties, we're also looking for a house party coordinator. So thank you again to everyone who has donated so far or is planning on donating. And thank you everyone for being here tonight and listening to this update. Thank you. And now I'm going to turn it over to Jess, I believe.
Hi, I'm Jess, and I wanted to talk to you about some of our upcoming events. So you'll see some details on the slide here, but in case you don't have a photographic memory, you are welcome to go to our website and look at the volunteer calendar on there. So first up is the ABCs of RCV event. This is great if you're new to RCV or if you just need some tips on how to pitch RCV to your friends and family. This is a workshop style event where you can learn some of the basics of RCV and also get tips on talking points. It's a fun event. You can get practical tools that you can start using right away. So highly recommend attending one of these. As you can see, we're going to have one in February, March, and April. So there's going to be lots of opportunities for you to attend. We'll also have an all volunteers meeting. As the name suggests, this is a meeting for volunteers. It's a great place to get updates on the org, to get plugged in, to get a closer look at what's happening on a day-to-day basis. The next one is happening in mid-March, and there will also be one in April. Next slide, please. All right, and I hear some of you in the crowd saying, I want something more thrilling. And for you, I say, come phone bank with us. As Guy talked about earlier in this call, there are lots of opportunities to get involved with the Redondo Beach campaign, and phone banking is one of the best and most rewarding ways to do this. So, and especially if you want to flex the skills that you gained at an ABCs of RCV training event, this would be a great opportunity to do so. And if you haven't been phone banking before, that's fine. We're going to provide you all the training you need. It may sound intimidating. It's not. It's really quite fun. And if you can't come to a phone banking event for the whole amount of time, that's fine. Drop in and make calls for 15, 20 minutes. If that's all the time you have to spare, that's great. We will take it. So as you can see, these events are sort of broken into two categories. There's voter ID sort of earlier, and then when we get closer to voting day, we're going to have get out the vote. These are both very, very important. So, feel free to pick whichever one or come to both if that works for you. If you have any questions about these events, I would encourage you to pop questions in the chat. Sam Gordon is our lead on this, and I believe he is here tonight. Or you could also contact us after the event or ask questions in the Q&A, which is going to start right now. And I think Arash will handle, perhaps.
Yes, good morning.
Perfect.
All right, thank you, Jess. Thanks, everyone. Thank you to all the speakers, as well as the comments that have been placed in the chat. It looks like a lot of people are interested in various activities that we're doing, and I'm glad to see the interaction. With that, let's go ahead and switch to answering some of the questions. Dan, I don't know if some questions that have been posted in the chat that we need to answer, or if we want to have people raise their hands. Either one works. If you do have a question, please go to raise your hand if you haven't already put it in the chat. If you do have to, if you have already posted your questions in the chat, we'll get to those in a moment. So while we're waiting for the chat, we already have one person, Mark, who's raised his hand. Mark, I apologize. Is it Rusan?
It's Ruzan.
Ruzan, please go ahead, Mark.
Sure. So I live in Santa Clara County, and just on Sunday in the Mercury News, there was a 600-word article from Larry Stone, who's the longtime county assessor of Mountain View, basically giving a whole bunch of reasons why ranked choice voting was a bad idea, including things in Alameda County that we know were not the fault of ranked choice voting. So as a tactical measure, do we respond or not? And if so, how do we respond?
I will take that one. So that letter to the editor was actually in response to the 3 editorials that the Mercury has run in support of ranked choice voting in Santa Clara County. The assessor is actually the first person to come out in opposition to this, unfortunately, and is the only countywide official that's in opposition to it. So we are working, we have a letter to the editor that is a response to that has been pinned by Steve Chesson. And so if that has not run today, it should run any day now. But yes, I would say if we want to continue to have more of a voice through the Mercury, that's definitely a way to do it. We know that the assessor has said that he's going to have a series of listening sessions, although if it truly was a listening session, he would hear how much the community wants RCV. But he has his own personal reasons for disliking RCV, right? Quite honestly, if ranked choice voting was in place, he may have had a harder time running for re-election the many times he's been re-elected as the assessor. But again, yes, to answer your question, yes. I think having more people write to the Mercury is great. We know that the Mercury editorial board is with us through the 3 editorials that they've run in support of RCV. Not only in the Mercury, but also in the East Bay Times, which they run. And calling for RCV to be statewide. So we have good allies there, but I think it's important for us to have more people lifting up their voices.
Thanks, Sean. All right, next, let's take a question from the chat. Let's see.
Did you see Christian?
Just some sort of platform to support the text banking. I'd rather not use my own phone for texting. I apologize. I missed Christian's question. Wasn't that it?
Yep, that was it.
Wasn't the question about? Yeah, okay, got it. All right. So do we use some sort of platform to support text banking? And I think we have a couple of options. We've used Call Hub. We've also used Nation Builder, but we have also asked volunteers if they'd like to use their own phones as well. So those are all options. I don't know, Sam, are you on the call? Maybe you want to add additional comments to that?
Yeah, we're planning to use Call Hub for these text banks, so no need to use your own phone.
Okay, very good, thank you. Okay, let's take another question from the folks who've raised their hands. Steve Knox, go ahead.
Thank you. Will you be using ranked choice voting in the general election? And if so, how do you get more than 2 names on the ballot? Can you hear me? Can't hear me.
We can hear you.
Yes,
Oh, okay.
yes. So Tom or Sean, or does anybody want to take that?
Steve, I think we
Steve?
need further
Steve, you want to take that question?
I'd be happy to answer that question. Yeah, to use ranked choice voting, we'd be replacing the existing top 2 system with a ranked choice voting system, whether it's final 4, final 5, not have a primary at all and just use ranked choice voting in the general. You know, those are all possible options, but it would definitely require a change to the current system.
And would you do it locally or statewide? Locally or statewide?
Well, the ultimate goal,
both.
of course, is statewide. That's the North Star. But right now, it's a lot easier to do this locally on a local by local basis. That
So
helps
when it-
education.
Right.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So when it's on a ballot, would there also be a final 5 measure and open primaries? I guess you have open primaries anyway, is that right?
The current system is kind of like an open primary, yes.
So Steve, can I jump in real quick?
Sure.
So it really would depend location by location. We're not prescribing one solution for all of California and all of our cities. We really are looking at it city by city and coming up with and working with the community partners to figure out what's the best solution for that jurisdiction.
Get it. We have the same problem here in Maryland.
Yes.
So we have a related question to what we just talked about by a couple of folks. So why is the statewide ranked choice voting for California not something that we're pursuing right now? Why is it county by county? There's a related question: why doesn't the North Star that we mentioned earlier also include federal elections? Sort of, but so keep one thing in mind. I'll mention something with regard to the federal, and then folks can jump in as well. So to realize that California Ranked Choice Voting Coalition is focused on RCV at the state level and at the various counties and cities. So our focus is California. We are working with other organizations that are looking at national, but this particular organization specifically is about California. Now, with that, Sean or Steve, if you want to add some additional notes to those 2 questions, that'll be great.
I'll add on. So we have a strategic plan that focuses on expanding the number of cities and jurisdictions across California that have ranked choice voting, so that more people outside of just the Bay Area are familiar with ranked choice voting before we go statewide. Keeping in mind, running a statewide campaign is very expensive in California, especially when it's something that you have to explain, like ranked choice voting. So if we're talking about a ballot process that has to be explained, we're looking at probably a $60 to $80 million ballot initiative. However, if we have more jurisdictions that have implemented ranked choice voting, more communities and more voters that are familiar with ranked choice voting, then it allows us an easier path to victory statewide. Also, there are some political hurdles that we are waiting to be removed and will be removed with time. And so that allows us an opportunity to build up ranked choice voting statewide. The other thing that I will point out regarding federal elections is most voting reforms in California have first focused on statewide candidates and the legislature, and then later added in federal candidates. So top two did that same thing. It was passed for statewide and legislative, and then later on, federal candidates were added to that. And so that is the same path that we are looking towards as CalRCV.
Thanks, Sean.
May I pursue that? Top two, does that mean from the primary round, 2 names go to the general election?
That is what we currently have, yes.
2 names, regardless of party.
Correct.
It could be 2 Democrats or 2 Republicans or whatever.
Yes.
Okay. I sat in on a session for Wisconsin, and they're billing the whole thing as final 5 rather than billing it as ranked choice voting. And their point is that words matter, and they are consistent across the state to push for final 5. I think it's important that people understand that you don't, ranked choice voting doesn't do anything until you get more than 2 names on the ballot. And the real issue there is to get more than 2.
Yes, we're very familiar with final 5. We have not made a decision as to what's best for California yet. We'll make that decision further down the line when we get to the point of looking at a statewide ballot initiative. We're not there yet. Again, we're building up that infrastructure, and hopefully we will be there soon.
Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, Sean. Next question, and I think Jim partially or almost fully answered in the chat. We have are we also fighting for proportional representation? Jim, do you want to take that, or Sean, do you guys want to take a stab at that? Or not?
Jim, do you want to take that one? I feel like I've been talking a lot.
Jim said he has no mic.
Okay.
Oh, well,
So
then
yes,
that was
proportional ranked choice is our North Star. We realize it is not always what can pass and what can be implemented. So we also are very conscious of that. But I think, we now have a city in California that has done proportional ranked choice in Albany. I think with Portland kicking off proportional ranked choice, we'll have a larger city that's more diverse that we can look to. But that's definitely, yes, our North Star.
Would you mind explaining what proportional representation is?
Okay. I am not the best person to explain proportional representation. I know it. I have not gotten to a point where I can explain it in 2 sentences, but maybe Steve Chesson can.
He's the perfect one.
Steve.
Yes.
Steve does a whole presentation around this, so he should be able to explain it.
2 sentences. Proportional representation is majority rule with fair representation for the electoral minority in direct proportion to how people vote. In other words, if you're electing a legislative body and you belong to a block of voters that represents 60% of the electorate, you should get 60% of the seats, not all of them. And if you belong to a block of voters that represents 30% of the electorate, you should get 30% of the seats, not nothing. That is proportional representation.
Right on. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
I have a question from Daniel Skupnowitz, and I apologize. I don't know what, I don't have the context on this. What states are the primary states that will be voting for or against this upcoming 2023-2024? I'm not sure what for or against what that you're referring to. I assume ranked choice voting, but I still don't have the context right.
So Daniel, I believe Nevada will be having a second vote on ranked choice voting in November of next year. I don't know of any states that will be voting on ranked choice voting this year. There are a number of anti-ranked choice voting bills that are going through legislatures across the country, especially the Dakotas. So both North Dakota and South Dakota. I believe North Carolina, Ohio. There are a number of states, Arizona. There are a number of states that have that type of legislation, but are not at the point where there's anything that we can do to fight against that.
Thank you, Sean. I'm glad you understood it. Okay. Joan has a question. Are we waiting for Gavin Newsom to get out? And I think this is a reference to getting it statewide. Getting RCV passed statewide.
No comment.
No comment. I think that's the right comment. Okay. I don't see any other questions. I don't know if I missed any. If I did, please raise your hand and let's make sure that we address your question.
I see a question from Joan in chat.
Can you hear me?
I got you, Sean. Arash froze for a bit, so.
Yeah,
but
I'm
I think
back.
he's back now.
Thank you, guys. Thanks for your patience. And I think we have a couple other questions. I'm gonna mess up this name, but it starts with a, I believe it's James. Is that correct? I don't know your last name. It starts with a C. James Corn Graffiti. I apologize. I don't know how to pronounce that name. James? Maybe not. Okay, we'll come back to you, James. David Holtzman, please go with your question.
Yeah, hi. Sorry about this, but I'm in Burbank. Hang on a second. Let me disconnect from the audio here on my phone. I'm so sorry. I've been, there we go. Now I'm disconnected from the audio on my phone. And there we go. Now I can hear you from my computer. Sorry, really sorry about that. Can you hear me now?
Yep. Loud and clear.
Okay,
Yep.
So I'm in Burbank, California. Burbank, California, not a huge city, a little over 100,000 population, but well known across the world for being home of beautiful downtown Burbank and a lot of TV and film production. Burbank just got the process started of splitting itself into 5 districts for city council elections instead of going to some sort of proportional representation for the 5 seats, or 3 and 2 as they do it now. This will mean, because they want to keep staggered terms, that voters who have been able to weigh in on city matters by voting for city council every 2 years will get to vote only every 4 years. And there's all sorts of other bad things that would happen with this. I mean, one outcome, of course, could be they say they have to do this because they have a threatening letter threatening to sue them under some state law that I think is unconstitutional, because we're a charter city and we have our election method in the charter. But one outcome could conceivably be instant runoff, ranked choice voting, single winner in each of the 5 districts. But I would really like to see a proportional IRV, proportional ranked choice voting used either every 2 years or every 5 years, for every 4 years in the city. My question to CalRCV is, what sort of resources might you have to help me work on a campaign down here? I should also say I'm pretty well known to Burbank City Council because I've moderated a candidate forum recently for their 3-seat election, just as head of the, I formerly was head of the League of Women Voters of Los Angeles, and now president, and now I do a lot of candidate forum moderating, things like that. So they know me, and I think it could really go, but if I had a little help from you folks. So what do you say?
Dave, referring to Burbank, you're actually on our agenda to talk about in the next couple of days within the leadership team of CalRCV. And we know that there's already been, I think that the council already voted to go to districts. So there's already things in flight, it looks like. The idea of going to proportional ranked choice voting in lieu of districts, right, remaining at large in a city, is an interesting option, and it might be a fit. A lot has to do with, the core of a CVRA lawsuit or letter is around representation, right? And so some of the critical questions are the people that are underrepresented in the city need to have a seat at the table when there are conversations about going to, or having any solution to increasing representation in the voter's voice. So that's one critical thing, right? Making sure that the Latino community in particular is involved in any effort is key. And that's something that we look at as an organization, making sure that the people who are impacted are at the table or have representatives at the table.
I've looked into that, and there's really not much of a Latino political community in Burbank.
And David, we're more than happy to help you because there are organizing tables around Burbank that bring together people of color organizations. One thing we as CalRCV recognize, and we mention it in our values, is there's a difference between winning and winning the right way. And so we are very much focused on winning the right way so that we build a diverse coalition that's supportive of RCV, and we don't repeat some of the same mistakes of our past where we've kind of rammed RCV through a community when there is not a diverse coalition that is willing to support it, and it ends up becoming much more of a challenge later on.
Yeah, sure. I mean, if you could help me find a politically active organization that defines itself as Latino, that's good. The civic organizations don't really do that. We certainly need to loop them in.
Absolutely.
So that's a long way to talk a little bit about how we approach campaigning in each city, particularly when we're talking about PRCV, proportional ranked choice voting, and particularly when we're talking about as a response to a CVRA lawsuit, something that obviously requires a lot of careful consideration. I think Burbank's really interesting. I think it would be amazing to have either single winner or proportional ranked choice voting adopted in the city. It really comes down to doing the work both to build the coalition and looking at what is really the best remedy in the city. We shouldn't just always assume it's going to be PRCV necessarily, although I think often it can be. So we should definitely connect offline, David, about Burbank.
And I would love from anybody to hear about efforts to have the part of the CVRA that purports to let city councils do things by ordinance when they're charter cities, have that declared unconstitutional, because you do that and you stop a lot of this silliness and leave it to the people of the city council to actually put it to the people. Right now, they're trying to do it by ordinance.
So with that, Tom, I know we have one other question, but unfortunately we're out of time. If you want to give your final remarks, and then if folks want to hang around, maybe we can answer some additional questions. But I'll hand it back over to you, Tom.
Yeah, well, so we're at time here. We can stay on, keep chatting as Arash just mentioned. But thank you everybody so much. It's so wonderful to see so many new faces, new names coming in. And as you can tell from the Q&A, we have people that are completely new to the movement, are learning about ranked choice voting, in the early stages. And then we have people that clearly have been at this for a number of years. And it's great to see everybody and with this knowledge sharing and learning about what's going on around the state. And even, we have someone from Maryland coming in, which is really encouraging. We're so glad to have everybody here. We have the Get Involved QR codes up and URLs. If you're not already signed up with us, please go do that. You can also indicate if you're interested in volunteering at that Get Involved link. And of course, if you can donate, especially if you can do a monthly donation, even $5 or $10, if not $100 a month, every bit helps. And we're only going to become more and more capable and effective as we grow the organization, are able to hire staff, and we're really excited about what 2023 has in store for the movement here in California. Thank you, everybody. If you want to stay on, feel free to stay on, or you can also drop off.
Thanks, folks. Thank you for attending tonight, and thank you to all the speakers. You made my job quite a lot easier, so I appreciate it. Great job. And once again, I'll repeat what Tom mentioned. If you haven't already, followed the links to get involved, especially with some of the new plans that we have and new groups, teams that we're putting together. Please follow the links that were provided in the chat. And of course, you heard about how much it's going to take for us to be able to pass ranked choice voting statewide. Please consider donating to us on a recurring basis. Thank you all for attending.